Welcome to Craving More, a CrossFit Crave podcast where we find motivation through obstacles, resistance, and everyday life with your co-host, Matt and CJ. Today, we have the opportunity to interview one of the best benchers in the world, Mike Big Bad Wolfe. Mike has multiple Ohio State championships under his belt, 3-time national champion. He's a 2-time best lifter at nationals, second place at the WPO Arnold Classic Bench Bash with a bench press of 860 pounds. He's the 2012 World Champion, AAPF National Record Holder. He holds a record at the AWPC, which is a national record, the APF National Record Holder, the WPC National Record Holder. He's currently ranked 4th in the world for 40 and over and number 1 in the USA for 40 and over. Mike's competed in over 40 competitions in 2 decades. Not only is Mike strong, his heart matches his size. Mike is our head coach of our Iron Will powerlifting team here at CrossFit Crave, which is comprised of special needs Olympic lifters here in Mercer County. He also just started a chapter of the Metal Militia, which he calls the Los Lobos chapter here in Western Ohio. We are excited for you to listen to Mike's story, talk about his upcoming event, and all of his accomplishments. Listen in and have fun. All right. Good. Hey, we're back.
What's up?
What's up? Welcome back to Craving More with your co-host, CJ, Matt. What's up, CJ? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Are you recovering? Everything's
so
well? I'm so recovered too.
I just cough up blood all the time.
Yeah?
It's fine.
Yeah. That happens.
I had someone tell me that they did that.
Really?
Yeah.
Cough up blood?
Mm-hmm.
That's scary.
I know.
That's not good.
Yeah, that's what happens when you get destroyed by a pandemic.
Yeah, that's true. But we're healthy and going back at it.
Yeah.
Hey, we have a guest with us.
Yeah, expert astrophysicist Mike Wolfe.
That's right. Yes, astrophysicist. I can't even spell that. Astrophysicist. I can spell astro, A-S-T-R-O.
Yeah, and
the rest of it.
Spell check for the rest.
Spell check is a great thing.
Not spell check. Siri, spell. Hey Siri, spell astrophysicist. Wait for it.
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear you.
Yeah, see, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. Siri can't even do it.
Oh, that's
great.
crazy. So, what are we going to talk about today?
Mike Wolfe, the astrophysicist.
That's right.
AKA the extremely strong and sexy Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Have you ever been called that?
I have never been called that.
You've been called sexy and strong.
I've been called big sexy.
Big sexy.
Big sexy. The big sexy Neil deGrasse Tyson.
2006 New England record breakers. We bench pressed on the floor at the UMass Stadium where the Minutemen play ball at. And they introduced all of us, and I didn't have a nickname. And one of my buddies, he's from Indiana, so I called him Who's Your Daddy?
Yeah.
And he nicknamed me Big Sexy. So when we came out, it was Who's Your Daddy? And came out Mike, Big Sexy Wolfe, and just echoed through the stadium. It was amazing. So never stuck, though. So it's I got the Big Bad Wolf nickname from Kieran Kidder from the 2007 Arnold Classic.
Okay.
The WPOs. He was the first one ever to announce Mike, the Big Bad Wolf, over the announcing, and it was pretty cool when he did it because I actually turned and looked at him. I was like, all right, it's like that's pretty cool. So in front of 10,000 people at the Arnold or more, however many's there watching at the expo. So it was pretty amazing. So it was good stuff.
That's awesome. Well, why don't we start with, tell us your background. Tell us who you are, where you're from, what your background is.
Yeah, my background, went to school in St. Mary's.
Rough Riders.
So it's, grew up there. I was born in Kentucky, moved to St. Mary's when I was probably about 3-ish, somewhere in that vicinity. Did all of my schooling through St. Mary's. Many different things that I was involved in as a kid. I tried baseball and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't really me. Started getting more into the individual type sports. The church that I was going to, we actually had wrestling at the church. Our youth pastor was actually a wrestling coach, so that kind of got me involved in a little bit of wrestling, and I guess I've never really shared that on a podcast. So,
No.
yeah, I mean, it's always powerlifting. So, but did a little bit of wrestling there. Wrestled 7th, 8th, and my freshman year. I did all right. I mean, I wasn't anything amazing with it, but I mean, it was something that was fun. It was an individual sport. Believe it or not, my 400-pound butt was actually a skateboarder at one point in time.
I do remember
And,
those days.
yeah, so it's I used to thrash it up. Come over here to Salina back in the day, freshman, sophomore years. So eighth grade, freshman, sophomore years, used to come over here and skate with the guys, and so did a lot of that stuff. Also, started lifting weights, high school football. So
You skated with Brandstetter too, right?
I did,
Back in the
yeah.
day, I remember that.
Big Travis Brandstetter, man.
Yep.
Me and him ripped it up back in the day. We still joke around about going and finding some ditches and stuff down in
Oh,
Columbus
yeah.
and skate.
Yeah, like
So-
where do you skate here?
So fun.
The steps at the courthouse.
Yeah, that's
You're
right.
one of those guys on the
That's
steps.
right.
The
That's
the church out on the west side of town. I'm trying to think what the name of it is. The one out there,
The
far west.
Purple Door Church?
No, west.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, out there used to be
yeah.
behind like the Ford dealers
Yeah.
out there.
I know what you're
So
talking
I
about.
can't remember the name of them. They actually let us put ramps and stuff out there. In the,
Really?
Oh yeah, we'd tear that stuff up out there. And then
So here's a funny story before he finishes with Travis. This is how Mike Wolfe's first name came to mind when I first met Mike and knew of Mike. This was back in high school, okay? So Travis was a freshman when I was a senior in high school. When did you graduate?
93.
Yeah, so we graduated together. That's what I thought. And he was a freshman.
He was a couple years younger.
Yeah, a couple years younger. Freshman or sophomore, one of those two. And we always wanted him to go to the weight room to lift because dude was going to be a powerhouse, right, for football.
Yeah.
I'd pick him up. So I lived 3 miles from where he grew up, right? And we were the furthest out of Rockford as you could get. Like, literally, my road was the dividing line between Rockford and Salina schools. So I graduated from Parkway. So did Travis. So I would go to his house in the morning to pick him up to go in to lift for football. This was before school, and we lifted before school. And he was like, "Man, I can't do legs today. My legs get too big for the board." And I'm like, "You talking about Brandstetter?" And I skated back then too. And he's like, "Yeah, I can't. And my legs get too big for the board." And he's right because his genetics are crazy.
Yeah,
like when he
genetics.
started lifting, like whoop, like
Yeah.
big time. And he's a bodybuilder now, right? So, and I'm like, well, who you skating with outside of us, the guys that we hang around with? Oh, it's guys St. Mary's, Mike Wolfe and a bunch of guys. I'm like, so growing up, that's the first introduction that I had to Mike. And then I don't know if you remember Aaron Mays and all those guys back in the days. That's when in high school, that's when we started running around together.
Oh yeah.
But that was my Travis Brandstetter story from way back in the day.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I met Travis through a guy, Dave Putman. So
Yeah.
and Dave's dad lived in Rockford, so Dave and Travis
Yeah.
got
Yep.
to know each other. So then I got to know Dave through him.
Mm-hmm.
We had a little ramp in Dave's mom and dad's garage, mom and stepdad's garage, and we'd go over there in the winter time. We'd just rip it up over there. So but,
Go ahead.
it's
Anyway,
good
so,
stuff.
skater before he was ever a
Yeah,
powerlifter.
skater, first ever powerlifter. So, but I did BMX racing and stuff
Yep.
with that also, and a lot of individual type sports that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Got into the weightlifting and football. I tried football. I am not a football player. I was like third string my senior year. Yeah, I was god awful, and and I played over there during the state championship era. And all of these guys have been playing football since they were little kids.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm coming in as a junior trying to play football, and it's just like, I was so lost. And it was more of a participation thing for me than anything. So. But the good thing about it is that it introduced me to the weight room. And that's where I got my passion. And my dad, he had bought us a weight set. I think that was like the summer between my sophomore and my junior year. He had bought us a weight set for the garage. And I kind of dabbled a little bit with it there. And then once I got access to the weight room in St. Mary's, started doing a little bit more. But, I was still that skater. And, I wasn't skating at the time, but to those guys, I was still a skater. And I was always that odd guy out. I just never quite fit in. So I always lifted by myself.
Yeah.
And so then after high school, and, my wife actually, she lived over here. She moved over here halfway through her junior year, my senior year. So on the weekends, I would actually come over here. And I would stay the weekend, Friday night, Saturday night, go home on Sunday at her place. Well, she worked at Subway, so it was when it was downtown, and then ultimately moved where it is now. But she worked at that Subway store, and what I would do is while she would be at work, I would just walk down the bike path. I'd come down here to the it was Breakaway. Well, it was the racquetball club back then, and met a lot of really good guys there, and that's where me and Brandstetter came back together and kind of started. I'm lifting together again, and then Taco Klosterman was out there, Chip Utgard was out there. I mean, there were so many guys out there, and they were coming off of that golden era of bodybuilding, and I mean, these guys are walking around in baggy pants and mullets, and it was the greatest thing ever.
Baggy pants with real tight ankles.
The ankles, and the big flare, the big clown pants. So like, what are they? The skids, I think they used to call them back in the day.
I remember those.
So, but
tank tops.
Rag tops, all that stuff. But I got into it there. Was eating my Cybergenics every day, so I don't even know if I was doing the right one. I mean, you had the endo, ecto, and meso, and I think I was taking the wrong one that I needed to because I had no clue. I just went into GNC and bought it because I seen it in the magazine. But that was my start. Not so much into powerlifting, but into just weightlifting altogether. And I mean, I was coming along. I mean, I was trying to lean out, trying to fit in with those guys, and those guys took me a long way. And then when I got hired into Crown, I went and I moved to New Bremen, and they had just built the YMCA there. And I went to the YMCA there, started training, and a couple weeks into that, and I tell this story on every podcast because it's a great story. You want to know how I got powerlifting? Here's where it's at. I'm in there, and I'm benching, probably 185 pounds, somewhere in that vicinity at the time, 200 pounds. And there's this large man in there, and he's got 4 plates aside, 405. He unracks it himself, does it for like 6-7 reps, puts it back in the rack. And I mean, I was just mesmerized. I'd never seen anything like that. And I'm like, who is this guy and what is he doing?
This guy's incredible.
So I literally just kind of watched him from the corner of the weight room. I'm over there doing my stuff, just kind of watching what he's doing. A little bit later, I go and hop in the hot tub, and a couple minutes later, here he comes, jumps in the hot tub. We start chatting. He introduced himself to me. It was Randy Houseworth. He was he was a police officer there in New Bremen at the time. And long story short, I mean, that was the pivotal change in my weightlifting career. He told me that I was built to powerlift, and told me if he wanted any bench press tips to let him know. And ultimately, in that conversation, he invited me to come and lift with him, and he hasn't got rid of me since.
So that was 93.
That was 94-ish.
94, right.
94 time frame.
So after high school, after the Travis introduced, and then I knew Mike a little bit in high school, I went away to college. In 94, 95, I think it's 95, 94, 95, the first powerlifting meet that I'd ever been in, it's a bench press competition at the YMCA.
Yep, 95.
And that's where, in 95, that's where I ran back into Mike, and then the relationship from there never ended.
Yep.
From that standpoint. And I had went to Columbus State for college. My cousin's husband was huge into powerlifting, and that's, so I was with him every single day. First time I ever put on a double stitch denim bench shirt, and he, Randy, and woman, Perez.
Oh yeah.
His nickname was Woman. Nick Perez, Big Nick Perez, literally helped me put my first bench shirt on. That meet. Yep. I was like, get it on. But that was my first ever time benching at a beat, first ever time having a double stitched denim shirt on, and that was
awesome.
Yeah.
And you come and benched with us a few times after that.
I
think you hopped in there with us a few times.
Yeah.
We was actually training at the North Y at that point in time.
Exactly. Yeah, that was, I'll never forget that. I was 143 pounds. That was 142, 143. I was at that weight.
142.
My best lift was 325. The guy that won, I came in second. The guy that won was an out-of-stater, opened at like 375 and finished in like the 425, 450 range. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm done.
Well, I actually bombed at that meet. And,
no kidding.
Yeah, that was the first meet that I'd ever bombed at. And it was funny because through high school, I hate to say that I was bullied, but I just never fit in. And I mean, I got my fair share of fights and stuff in high school and picked on for being a skater and stuff like that. But I mean, I was just always that. I mean, I had lots of friends, but I mean, inside, I mean, I was still a loner. And which, I mean, surprising now. I mean, I'm so extroverted.
Yeah, that's right.
But anyways, that meet, I can remember I had a lady tell me one time that I was a curmudgeon. And basically what I did was I used any animosity that I had against me to train. I mean, I trained with anger. And so when I was in the gym, that's what I used to fuel. It was anger from, I mean, being beat up, pushed around. I hate to use the word like I said, but bullied.
Yeah.
But that's what fueled my training. And I had this lady one time tell me I was a curmudgeon, and I don't know what the heck a curmudgeon is. So I went and looked it up. I actually used a dictionary. We didn't have Wikipedia and all that stuff back then. But you looked it up in a dictionary, and it's a mean and hateful person. And I remember thinking to myself, am I a mean and hateful person? I mean, because that's not me. I'm not a mean and hateful person. I'm the nicest. I'm a big teddy bear. I'm the nicest guy you'll ever meet. Yep. So, but I remember that, and it really bothered me. And I've told this story a few times also, but in the weight room at St. Mary's, there was always a sign right at the top of the steps that said, the only difference between a champ and a chump is you. And I always remember that, but it never made sense to me. I'm like, well, duh, everybody knows A and U. I mean, duh. I mean, it never registered with me what it meant as a kid. And we was at that powerlifting meet, and I actually bombed out. And I was a state champion at that point in time. I had won state a couple times, and I should have come in there, and I should have benched well over. I opened at 500 pounds. I should have went well over 500, and ended up missing all my lifts. And the guy who ended up winning, when he got up there to the podium, they handed him his gold medal, my gold medal. He had a shirt on that said, the only difference between a champ and a chump is you. And that's the day that it resonated with me that I was a chump.
Wow.
And from that day forward, I was like, I says, I'll never use that again.
Yeah.
And if you ever see me, I mean, obviously I'm retired now.
Yeah.
But if you ever watch any videos of me when I'm competing, this is me. I mean, I'm happy-go-lucky. Yep. I mean, in the warm-up room, I'm happy-go-lucky, goofing, cracking jokes. I mean, that's just, a lot of these guys walking around all huffing and puffing and pissed at the world. And me, it's just, hey, I'm having a good time. I'm having fun. But as soon as I buckle my belt, when I step on that platform and I flip that lever, I go to a dark spot. So, and it's only for that minute that I'm lifting. Right. And as soon as I release that belt, I'm back to Mike. So, but for that time frame where that lever is pulled shut, I'm ready to rip heads off.
Wow, that's a special thing to be able to flip like that.
Yeah, so it's
crazy.
I love it. I mean, it's one of those parts of the sport that I really miss. Is just that adrenaline rush of you got to get this or it's going to smash you. I mean, trust me, I've had 905 on top of me. I blacked out and dropped it. So I mean, it's pictures on my Facebook. I mean, it smushed me. So, but they snapped that picture right at the bottom, right when everything was compressed. So it was pretty crazy.
Wow.
But yeah. So and then, like I said, me and Randy we trained together for quite a while, and then 2000. Let me take that back. Would have been 1996. It was the summer that my son was born. We was at state championships, and it was down in Circleville, Ohio. I was like Circleville. It was down in Circleville, Ohio is where we was at. Everybody knows Westside Barbell. Anybody that's in the sport knows Westside Barbell. A lot of the CrossFit folks know Westside Barbell.
Yep.
And when back in that day, man, Westside had a stigma. You got out of their way when they walked in.
Yeah.
It was a rough and tumble. I mean, they walked in and it was like the parting of the seas with Moses. I mean, you got out of their way or they ran you over. That's just the way that it was. And I can remember seeing those guys all the time at meets. I mean, obviously, those are the best in the world. I mean, if you watch the documentary, I mean, it's
like literally the best.
Yeah, the best in the world.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, I always had that fear of those guys. I mean, it always kind of just got out of their way. Just watched them from a distance. And fate would have it, I crossed paths with Lou, and we was talking. He asked me what I thought about the last lift, and it was a guy he'd got 700 pounds, and it was perfect. And they red lighted him for it, and Lou couldn't figure out why. And it wasn't even one of Lou's guys. It actually would have beat Lou's guy.
Wow.
And Lou was pissed off that they didn't give the lift to the guy. And so he was asking me what I thought about it, and I told him, I thought it was a good lift. I says, and I remember him telling me that. I said, well, why are you mad? I was like, that would be your guy won. I was like, so I says, if he would have got it, he would have beat your guy. He's like, I don't want my guys to win that way. He goes, if my guy gets beat, my guy's going to have to go back and train and be harder and be better. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, that was kind of cool. Lou, well, at that point in time, he called me out. He's like, hey, you're that Mike Wolfe kid, right? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you got potential. He's like, you need to come see me. And I'm like, oh, like the powerlifting gods, the lights opened up and shined on me. And I'm like, holy smokes. I'm like, did I just get invited to Westside?
Yeah.
And so he told me to be at Westside that next Saturday at 9 o'clock. And so I went out and I sat down next to Chas, my wife, and I said, you're not going to believe what just happened. She's like, what? I was just talking to Lou in the bathroom. I said, he invited me to Westside. She's like, seriously? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, swear to God. I was like, he invited me to Westside. She's like, are you going to go? And I'm like, well, yeah. So we get down there the next Saturday. My wife drove with me, and we had my newborn son in the back. My wife reads, so she had a bunch of books and stuff with her. Had no idea how long I was going to be in there. And we pulled up. It was at the old Demarest Road area, or where it was at. Not where it's at now. Yep. And my heart rate picked up, and I started getting this little gag reflex thing going on, kind of like getting. And I mean, it was just like, okay, it's time. I mean, are you going to do this? And I couldn't do it. And two big guys walked out. And I mean, just Tom Waddle, and I don't remember the other guy's name, but they walked out, and they were just monsters. And I looked at my wife. I was like, those guys are going to kill me if I go in there. I was like, I can't go in there. And she's like, well, Lou invited you. And I'm like, well, yeah, Lou invited me. I said, but look at those guys. I says, I can't go in there. And I drove away.
No kidding.
I drove away. Wow. It took me 8 years to go back. And I ended up ordering the videos.
Years?
Yeah.
Wow.
I ordered the videos COD, cash on delivery. So the video showed up at the house. You pay the mailman the money, and he takes care of it. So that's crazy to think we used to do that stuff.
No kidding.
But me and Randy, we had VHS videos, and we watched the VHS videos, and that's how we first got introduced to the training methods. And then I took a break. That's some bodybuilding with Brandstetter.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I always tell everybody I had my epiphany moment on bodybuilding. I was actually dieting down to do a show. He was helping me, and I was sitting in the bathtub shaving the back of my legs. Believe it or not, I was small enough to be able to do that. And I had a protein shake sitting on the side of the tub, and I'm shaving my legs. And I remember just sitting there thinking to myself, what am I doing? It's like, this isn't me. I was like, what am I doing? One, I like to eat way too much and not healthy. Yeah. So, I mean, at that point in time, that was just kind of that moment. You know what, Mike, you're a power lifter. That's where you need to be. You need to be a power lifter. And I decided at that point in time I was going to go back to powerlifting. And like I said, I did a little bit on my own. And then it would have been, I don't know, it was probably 2002-ish, 2003-ish, somewhere in that area. I actually I called up Doris, called up the number in the back of PL USA and Powerlifting USA magazine, and Doris answered the phone, and I said, hey, this is Mike Wolfe. I was like, I don't know if Lou remembers me or not. I says, but I had actually talked to him a while back. Actually, it was 2004. Now that I'm doing the math in my head.
Yeah.
And so I called him up and talked to her. She's like, well, I said I'll have Lou call me. Well, about a half hour later, I get a phone call back from her. And first words out of her mouth, she goes, Lou wants to know where you were at 8 years ago. And so he actually remembered it.
Wow.
And I told her the story that I got scared and I drove away. And she laughed at me and she said, Lou said to be here Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. Don't be late. And so that was my second chance. So,
wow.
And I went down and I took full advantage of it. And the first couple months I trained with the Saturday morning crew. And then one Saturday I came in. And the Sunday morning bench crew was in there, and Lou introduced me to him. And I got there a little early. I had seen him over there lifting. I knew a couple of them from the magazines and the videos and stuff. But he took me over, introduced me to him, said, hey, you're a bench only guy. These are the guys you need to be training with. And so I they let me train in with them that day. And it was funny because I actually ended up having the biggest bench of the day out of the group.
Wow.
And it was funny because there's a guy, Tony Ramos. And if you guys have watched the documentary, you see Tony. And Tony has just given George Halbert all kinds of grief because I beat him. And the downfall is George had spent a week in the hospital, like a week prior to that, with a flu. All that stuff. So it's kind of like, okay, I didn't beat him on his best day.
No, completely irrelevant.
But I was on my
But anyways, they invited me to the Sunday morning crew. And I asked them, I said, well, what time do you guys train? And they train at 6:30 a.m. And they just happened, I think it was like a holiday weekend or something was going on where they happened to be in there on Saturday. but they trained at 6:30 a.m. And for those of you that went to college, me and my wife didn't go to college. We graduated, went right into the factory life, and started having kids. So we didn't have them party years in the college. So our late 20s ended up being our partying years. And kids were old enough, they'd always want to go spend the night at grandma's, so they'd go stay with grandma, and we'd go out and have a few drinks, have a good time. So that was kind of during that time frame where we were going out on Saturday. So I went home and I told the wife, I was like, hey, look, I said, I got this amazing opportunity to train with these guys. I said, they'll take me to the top of the world, be one of the best. And I said, but I said, they train at 6:30. I said, which means I got to be up at 4:45 on the road by 4:30 to be down there by 6:30. And she asked me, she's like, well, she goes, is that what you want? And I said, well, yeah. I said, that's these are the guys I need to be with if I'm going to go to the top. She goes, all right. She goes, we'll just go out on Friday nights. So we switched our night out to Fridays. Yeah. And it wasn't that we went out every week. And I don't want to sound like we were a bunch of drunks or anything. But, I mean, it's once or twice a month we'd go out and have a good time. And anyways, we just switched it to Fridays on the days that we did go out. And Saturday mornings or Saturday nights, I was in bed at 8:30. And up Sunday mornings at 3:45, and I did that from 2004 to 2010.
Wow.
So for like 6 years, getting up bright and early, hitting the marathon, getting a couple sandwiches for the road down, and there we went. A cup of coffee, a couple sausage and egg sandwiches, and down,
ready to go.
down 33. The rest is history.
That Sunday group that you powerlifted with, they were the best in the world at the time.
They were some of the best in the world, yes, some of the best, and then up and coming. George Halbert, 16-time world champion, so all-time world record holder. Yeah. So amazing, very knowledgeable, very knowledgeable.
What's his lift? What?
At the time, his best contest lift is 766 at 198.
198 pounds.
Yeah, and that was way past anybody else in that weight class. And but I mean now, those numbers, to today's standards, equipment, bench shirts. You talked about a double denim.
Yeah.
It was a double denim bench shirt that he used. Now they got the poly. Now they got the super poly. Now they've gone into the band shirts. So numbers are getting astronomical now. It's crazy with the amount of gear. And for those that don't know what we're talking about, the way that I explain raw versus geared lifting, I use it like the high jump and the pole vault. The high jump is everything that you can do humanly possible, but people wanted to go higher, so they added a pole so that they could go higher. Same thing with the raw bench pressing and the bench shirts.
It's a great analogy.
It's a tool. It's basically a tool that allows you to go heavier. Yes, the shirt assists in the lift, but you know what? It just like the pole, if you didn't know how to use the pole, you're going to fall flat on your head. Mm-hmm. If you don't know how to use the bench shirt, it's going to fall flat on your face or flat on your belly.
Yeah.
And because you're either going to dump it forward or you're going to dump it backwards. Very rarely does it come straight down if you don't know how to control it. So it's just a tool. It's another aspect of the sport. Some people say it's cheating. I would never call it cheating because it's everybody in that division's using it.
Right, it's a different thing. It's not.
My biggest thing, though, with the sport is that if you tell me you're a 900-pound bench presser, you better tell me you're a 900-pound bench presser with a bench shirt and be able to explain that. Because the world record now without a bench shirt is 770, which that guy's eons above everybody else. And the world record with a bench shirt is 1105. So, there's a huge variance. Huge variance. Mm-hmm. And so that's my big thing is, I don't want somebody telling me they're a 900-pound bench presser without adding shirted bench presser. So
exactly.
I always say raw or shirted. I ask people all the time, is that raw or is that gear? Mm-hmm. So, and because I want to know. I want to know where you're at raw. I want to know where it's your gear.
Yeah.
And there's some guys in gear that don't train raw. They don't know what their raw number is.
Yeah.
Me, I excelled in both. I made my name in the sport in shirted bench pressing. After I blacked out, dropped the 905 on me, I actually retired from the sport because 2 weeks prior to that, I watched Steve Green snap his forearm. I was spotting that arm. We was at a meet in Columbus.
Wow.
And he had 740 on the bar. And he had just hit his first 700. And he was coming down, and he started to flare his left arm out. And I yelled at him to get his arm back underneath him, and right when he rolled it under, you just heard it like two twigs, snap, snap. And I grabbed it. We got it off of him, and when he let go of the bar, his left arm just folded back at a 90 degree like this. And I remember holding his arm in my hand, and he looks at me. He's like, "Mike, how bad is it?" And I'm like, "Dude, don't look. Don't look."
Yeah.
And 2 weeks prior to that, I blacked out and dropped 905 on me, and I had seen the picture right before that meet. The picture got released. The person had taken it, and so I was kind of 2 bads in a row. And Lou always said, if you get scared, you'll quit. So, which I mean, you can't be scared. I mean, something's going to break. I mean, look at me how I walk around. I mean, I walk around. I'm broken, battered, and beaten up, but I wouldn't change it for the world. I mean, the experiences and stuff that I've done, going to the top of the world. I mean, getting to compete at the stage at the Arnold, and going to Vegas for Worlds, going to Florida for Worlds, going to the New England Record Breakers, getting a bench with some of the best in the world there. I mean, it's just there's nothing that can beat it. I mean, they get my world records. I mean,
crazy.
So I mean, and it's crazy to say that I had my best year at 40 years old, though. I mean, that's what's amazing. So, and at 40. From when I turned 40 till 40 and a half, that was the greatest time of my life. And then from 40 and a half on, it's just been crap, just injury after injury after injury. So, but I mean, still to my credentials. I mean, for 40 and over, I got the biggest bench ever done in the United States for somebody that's 40 and over, and 4th in the world. I got 3 damn Russians in front of me. So,
that doesn't even count. What is that number?
650.4 in a t-shirt. So, and, so, but you got Julius now, and I mean, Julius has just blown everybody out of the water. So, my last meet my last big meet where I tore my pec, and I went for 680 down in Nashville, and I was chasing that 700. I would have been the 5th guy to ever hit 700 raw, and I ended up tearing my pec with 680 down in Nashville. And Julius, I think he hit like 655 down there at that point in time. That was 2015. That was the fall of 2015. And I ate breakfast with him the next morning at the hotel. And I told him at that point in time, I was like, Julius, I was like, you're the future of this sport. I said, you need to take this and run with it. And he did. I mean, he is an animal. I was trying to get him here for our meet coming up here next week. Yeah. And he's just got so much stuff going on right now. And powerlifting has really come out of the dark ages, which I have a love-hate relationship with them. And I love the old school, gritty, grimy stuff. I'm not a flashy kind of guy. I mean, you go to some of these meets now, and everybody's got matching apparel on, and I mean, their socks match their shoes match their singlet matches their underwear matches their hair ties, and that's the guys. So, I mean, I'm an old school guy. You know what? Throw on a pair of Chuck Taylors, throw on your singlet, and let's go. So, so it's like I said, it's a love-hate relationship with where it's at right now. I love that it's getting the publicity that it is, and there's finally a little bit of monetary money in it. Yeah. And I mean, you're never going to make a living off of it, obviously. But I mean, there's actually some big meets now that are offering $10,000-$12,000 for first place and best lifters and stuff like that. So, kind of a good to see that side of it, I guess.
For sure, it's crazy how, like in our world, the CrossFit world, you see this is probably 8 years ago, maybe. I'm trying to think now. Yeah, probably 8 years ago when Louis Simmons really started to have an influence in the CrossFit world from a how to train, and that's what I want to talk to you guys about is the strength. Why is his method so successful, right? So CrossFit went to Westside and had a documentary and like teach us why your methodology is so successful. So CrossFitters can gain that knowledge. A coach can gain that knowledge and start programming the right way, not just throwing things on a whiteboard and making somebody do something and like, I don't know if that's going to work or not. Right. Teach us the methodology behind it, and then they come up with the CrossFit powerlifting certification, and
CrossFit
you can
conjugate.
The conjugate certificate. That's where I met Shane and Laura 6 or 7 years ago, right? Because they were helping Lou teach that. They were going into seminars and giving that kind of stuff out, and it's kind of like you said, the powerlifting scene has opened up right? And the CrossFit scene has opened up, and the Olympic lifting scene has opened up. And I think it's all three of them combined is why it's opened up to so many different people, right? Because they're pulling, CrossFit's like, hey, let's pull Olympic lifting and let's learn how to do that. And Olympic lifting's like, great, that gives us more notoriety. And, we're not helping powerlifting at all, but you're helping us grow. And that's where you're seeing that, you know what I mean?
Right, and I've said that too. That's what I mean. I've said that with the influx of CrossFit, because there's been both. I mean, there's been people go both ways. I mean, a perfect example is AJ Roberts. AJ Roberts from Westside Barbell. I mean, he crossed over from powerlifting to CrossFit, and he did great at it. Laura Phelps, she crossed over from powerlifting to CrossFit. She runs CrossFit Conjugate.
That's right.
And she sponsors a couple of the teams that have been on the Reebok Games and have done extremely well with the Reebok Games.
Exactly. Coming third there this year.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like I said, that whole crossover is definitely, I think it was second. So it was Conjugate Black, I think.
Yep,
so
exactly.
But yeah, I mean, it's like I said, I mean, it's definitely opened doors in every aspect.
Right.
And
That's right.
I mean, it's opened doors for you guys. It's opened doors for the powerlifting world.
For sure.
And but like I said, I mean, I myself am still that old school gritty, grimy guy. So that's I love the grit and grime aspect of it. But
and I think you would, if you would talk to an Olympic lifter, they're going to say the exact same way. They're going to say the way CrossFit coaches teach Olympic lifting is not the way we would teach it.
Right.
I'd say 50%, right? When it comes to the fine tuning of it, Olympic lifters and coaches would be like, no, we wouldn't teach that shoulder shrug. That's not the way it is. We teach it because it's the easiest way to get a large group of people moving in the right direction, right? Same thing with the powerlifting side. Like yourself, you're going to look at some of the stuff we do like, that's not right. But we're still using the methodology to get our people stronger. It may not be exactly the right technique, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I think it's cool, like, so I don't know, I went to college for exercise physiology, and they would always tell us, like, you can't get stronger and improve your endurance at the same time, or you can't, like, they're two separate things. So they would say, I don't know, if you're powerlifting, you're not going to be able to get your mile run time faster. And that was like, so I believed that forever, and then came to CrossFit, and then we started incorporating the powerlifting stuff in, and then kept doing the CrossFit stuff in, and then you talk to someone who's like really good with aerobic capacity stuff, and you start all working all at the same time, and you're not going to get like, a powerlifter is going to get so much stronger, so much faster because that's what they're doing. But you can definitely improve all aspects of that at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think like we incorporated Louis Simmons stuff, like
The
dude was a genius.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He found there's a formula for it, and he nailed it. Like in that aspect.
That's right.
And then you got like Chris Hinshaw in the aerobic capacity stuff, and then you start incorporating all those things, and then slowly but surely you're just going up and up and up and up and everything. Yeah. There's not like there's not like a set thing like, well, if you go on a mile run, you're gonna lose all your strength.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing how much even like the powerlifting side brought that into CrossFit, and then people are getting stronger than ever now.
Yeah, and you're always going to have your outliers, which each sport needs the outliers. The outliers, like the Mike Wolfes of the world, like CJ Cummings from an Olympic lifting. You're going to have those best at the best that, in quote, that's all they do. They eat, sleep, drink that sport.
That's it.
And then
but how do you get good in that sport?
Yeah.
You have to do that.
That's right. Yeah, but the other 99% of us, there's the 1%er. The 99% of us need to incorporate a little bit of all of that just so we can live healthy and get stronger and do everything we want to do.
And to be an elite CrossFitter, it's really weird because you got to incorporate everything. So you have to take stuff from everywhere.
Yeah, you have.
But the general population, unless you're like, you really like something, right? Like if you're super into powerlifting, but you're just the general population, obviously you're gonna do that. And nothing wrong with that, but it's like if you're just trying to be like an average CrossFitter, or like I want to go on a road with my friends sometime, but I don't want to listen. It's gonna be you gotta.
Yes. Here's the if you think about names, and I'm going to get back to your story and kind of talk about the methodology, why it's so successful, and we'll get to that. But if you think about in the CrossFit world, the Tia Toomeys and the Matt Frasers, both have Olympic lifting background. Tia went to the Olympics for crying out loud, right? For her Olympic lifting. Matt was on the U.S.
Olympics.
That's right. Matt was on the team, right? USA team. If you look at who is can't think of his name. That's a powerlifter. Just had a kid. He and his wife. Long hair. Always wears the skimpy
blonde hair.
Yeah, wears the skimpy shorts.
Yeah, Sam Dancer.
Sam Dancer, right? Powerlifter. Dude can pull close to 700 pounds off the ground, in a deadlift, right? So he came from a football powerlifting background, and now crushes everything in CrossFit, right? He's one of the top CrossFitters in the world, top 10, let's say. So
he ran. What was the ranch? They had a 5K or something.
Yeah.
Up and down a bunch of hills. He got like a 1 minute rest straight into a 550 deadlift.
Yeah. So he
like,
crushed a run and then literally just stood up and just.
Only one around got like 400 or something.
Yeah, he crushed everyone in the field. And, came in second or third in the run, something crazy like that. So, but those are outliers, right? You got a powerlifting world, you got the Olympic lifting world that comes together. Why is it so successful? Like, your meet that's coming up next weekend after next.
6th.
Yeah, the 6th.
The 5th.
Fifth, yeah.
The 5th.
Like, how do those individuals that are gonna come to that meet and do successfully well probably follow what Louis?
Well, it's got to be generally the same programming, right?
These aren't all West Side guys. I mean,
Right.
this
But do you
is
think
this
they-
is
Does only West Side use that, or does?
Do you think they
There were-
incorporated some of?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Because West Side's so huge.
Yeah.
But there's all kinds of different training philosophies out there. Not everybody uses West Side.
Yeah.
And my big thing is I always tell people, I'm like, experiment, find what works for you.
Yeah. That's a good point.
West Side worked for me, but just because West Side worked for me, a basic 10, 8, 6, 4, 2 pyramid scheme may work better for somebody else.
Yeah.
Something with high volume may work better for somebody else. We tried to build Kazmaier workout one time just for the heck of it, just to see, and it took us almost 2.5 hours to get through it, and the volume was so high.
Yeah.
And after we finished it up, we halfway through we were ready to quit. I was like, we're not going to quit this workout. I was like, we're going to get through it. And after we did it, I agreed with the guys. I was like, we will never do that again. I was like,
Glad we did it.
yeah.
Not
So
coming back.
it's not us.
Yeah.
By the time we all hurt for a week afterwards. And that it just sucked. So we always go back to West Side. Like I said, it's just you got to find what works for you. That's my best advice, especially new people coming into the sport. I tell them, I said, you know what? I said, seek out people with knowledge, through trial and error. I've been doing this for 26 years,
Right.
and the first 10 of it was trial and error. So,
Yeah.
and then like I said, then I found the West Side aspect of it, and went to West Side, and it just blew up from there. And it just, am I genetically gifted to bench press? Yeah, I got short arms and a big chest, big belly, so I'm genetically gifted to bench press as opposed to somebody who's, I'm 5'9.5", 5'10" on a good day,
Right.
And so I'm designed to bench press. I'm not designed to deadlift.
Yeah.
I can't deadlift for crap. My best deadlift ever is 585. So I can't deadlift, and so I don't do it. I don't squat. I hate the feeling of having a bar on my back. And
That's still a pretty good deadlift.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I suck at deadlifting too.
but it's just like I said, it's not me. I don't mind deadlifting. I just hate loading the bar. So if I had some little minions that would come out and load the bar for me, and all I had to do was lift it up, I would probably deadlift considerably more than what I did. So I hate loading that bar, so I don't do it. So. Some rack pulls, so I got to lift up with a deadlift helper or something like that occasionally. So I pulled a 725 deadlift at it just a shin level, so I was pretty happy with that at one point in time. So, but yeah.
I don't think I could load that much more. I couldn't do anything with it. I could roll it somewhere.
But yeah, like I said, just find what works for you. And West Side worked for me. Getting down there and really being in the environment, and that's another thing, is the environment where you train at.
Yeah.
If your environment isn't fired up and somebody's pushing you and you're trying to be better, you're just gonna be stagnant and not getting any better.
Yeah.
Right.
And so as a coach, I try and push now. That's transitioning over from a competitor now to more of a coach status, especially here with all the injuries and not being able to compete anymore. It's that's really something that I have to transition myself over and live it vicariously through my lifters that I'm coaching, and I got a handful of them. I mean, any given Sunday we can have 10 to 15 people in there. So this past Sunday we had 5. So I mean, and then with we got a Wednesday night crew, and it was 4 or 5 of us there on Wednesdays, and then I coach a young lady in Walpock on Saturday mornings, and then we got the Special Olympics kids. So and I wish I could program the Special Olympics kids a little bit more to the West Side methodology. Yeah. And but I mean, we got to keep it pretty basic and simple with those guys.
Yeah. And that's where Mike and I really kind of, I would say, kind of came back together. We had done some things with bench meets on and off through the years, us hosting it and whatnot. And then when the Iron Will program became available, when we were approached to do, hey, would you like to be involved with that? Literally, my first phone call after that phone call was to Mike. Like, hey, man, what do you think about this? I don't even think I got the words out. And it was like, yep, I'm in.
Well, you can see it. You're so good with it.
Oh, yeah.
Even, coaching anyone in general, you're yelling at everyone. Just supporting everyone, though, not, yelling at them. Yeah. But, you get intense, and it's awesome.
Yeah. Days that my leg's not killing me.
Yeah.
There's some days I was like, I got to chill for a minute, guys.
Yeah.
But it's all good. It's all good.
Oh, it's awesome. It's so fun to watch.
Love it.
So what exactly is the West Side methodology, and what makes that different?
Give us the 10,000, because, that could probably take hours.
Yeah. I mean, and I've always told Lou. Obviously, we know the general basis of it. And Lou starts getting into percentages and waves and all of that stuff. And I remember one day I just kind of threw my hands up at him and I said, just tell me what to do. I mean, that's where I wanted to be at. So just you coach me. But my simple breakdown for when we bench press, I'm a bench press only guy. I've never programmed it for the squats. I've never programmed it for the deadlift. So like I said, with me being a bench only guy, I basically have 4 days of training. 2 of those are bench press days. 2 of those are shoulder and back days. If you look at any of my training splits, that's what it is. Occasionally, and I'm talking very occasionally, I'll throw a leg day in there just for something. And but my training split right now, Wednesday is my heavy bench day. And with me training the guys right now, basically what we do is we pick 4 exercises. And that can be a hanging band. That is where you take, it's called the Enlightened method. You take a bar, you put it in a rack, you hang bands from the top of the rack, and then as you come down, as you're bench pressing and it comes down, that bar gets lighter, because that band is deloading it. And then as you back up, that bar's getting heavier. And so we'll use that. We're actually using that right now in our training. We do what's called a floor press, and where you can set the bar in the rack really low. And then basically what you do is you lay on the floor, or we go over and we get the plyo boxes because we're too lazy to go to the floor. We put the plyo boxes inside the power rack. Yeah. Come out just like regular bench press. Come down to your elbows, hit the floor, and back up. No leg drive. Legs are off the floor. It's all upper body. It's all arms. That's a great movement for building arms. Then we do triples. We'll just regular standard bench press where we're doing triples. And then trying to think with all the other ones, bands from the bottom. So where we hook bands at the bottom, they're going from the floor, and as it goes up, you start getting that resistance. So it's those are the 4 exercises that we've pretty much been doing for we've been doing 3. It's been a 12-week cycle. We've been doing the first exercise, second exercise, third exercise, fourth exercise. That's week 1 through 4. And then at week 5, we're back to the week 1 exercise, week 2, week 3, week 4. So now you're at week 8. And then at week 9, you're back at exercise 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you're at that 12 week. And then that'll throw us into the contest time. So contest, depending on where we finish out at, we start throwing in pauses in there because some of the contests require you to pause the weight on your chest at the bottom. So this last couple weeks, our 12 weeks kind of ran out. We did triples with pauses. Last week we did doubles with pauses. This week we'll take our opening attempts. and then we will be done until the contest. And so tomorrow when we come in here, we'll be in here tomorrow night. The guys that are competing, they'll take their opening attempts, and then this weekend, the folks that are competing that weekend, they'll also take their opening attempts. But basically, when you do that, you start at week 1. You go max. You find out what your 1 rep max is, or we do like the 3 reps on the 1. You find out what your 3 rep max is, and then say if you you hit 300 pounds on the 1 exercise on week 1, when you come back to week 5, you want to try and beat that 300 pounds. And so you want to jump to like 305, 310, something like that, and you should be able to hit that. And then when you hit week 9, same exercise, you did 310 here, you want to do 315 here. So you're constantly, and then same thing with the other exercise,
movements, right? And
the other movements.
Yeah.
So if you're doing a floor press, if you do, say you do 300 there, again, you want to go 305, 310, you're going over 100%. So, and people ask, how do you train it over 100%? Well, you know what? If my 100% is 300 pounds, 305, I'm over 100%. I'm trying to go there. And then, like I said, you can throw a rest day in that wave also, or a rest week. So if you need to deload, and we usually do that the week before the contest, we'll deload and don't do nothing, and just let the body and heal up.
Yeah.
The other day in there, the other bench day is a dynamic effort day. Now, this is where I've switched some personally to see what worked for me. I've never had an issue with bar speed, and that's what the dynamic effort day is. 3 reps under 3 seconds with 50% of your 1 rep max. So, I mean, if you're benching 600 pounds, you would be doing your bar speed with 300 pounds. You can add some accommodating resistance to that. I mean, you can add some bands or some chains, but you never want to go over like 60%. So, I mean, you never want to do that. Now, bars should be explosive. Boom, boom, boom. I know those guys down there, they will change their grip. They'll do a competition grip. They'll do it like a shoulder width grip. They'll do a close grip. I've always done everything with my competition grip. That's where, if I want to do a close grip bench press, I'll do it as an accessory. So, but we do 9 sets of 3 reps with that 50%, 9 to 12 sets. I mean, I'm a 9 set guy. But what I did there was I actually started rotating that with a bodybuilding day. Because I didn't have an issue with bar speed. But if you watch any of my bar speed, I mean, it's fast as can be. That's something that George has always trained us to be explosive down there with our bar speed. And so with that, my dynamic days, I switched I'd alternate a dynamic day with a bodybuilding day to where I just trained like a bodybuilder. I mean, I would do dumbbell chest presses, I would do flies, I would do push-ups, I would do anything I could to pump that full of blood. And then I would hammer the triceps, and I'd do a bunch of stuff with the triceps also, flood them with blood. And then the next week I would go back. At my top, that's how I trained. When I was at the peak of my career, I alternated those 2 days as my dynamic and then a bodybuilding day. And they do talk about like a bodybuilding day additional onto what you can do down there. But those are the days, and then when we're done with that, both those days we do that max effort, we do that speed work as we call it, and then we hit another, I mean, you can hit another chest movement if you want to, and then triceps, and then a lot of times those guys will do a back movement there also, but I myself personally didn't do that because I don't squat and deadlift, so that opened up 2 more days for me. So then I would, on my other 2 days, I would train 4 back exercises on one day, and 2 shoulder exercises, and then the next day I would flip-flop it. Then I would do 4 shoulder exercises and then 2 back exercises. And I always threw some bicep hammer curls in on that also to get a little bit of bicep control in there. So look good curls for girls.
So there's truly a science.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an absolute science behind that, right?
Yeah. So and I mean, if you dig deep into it, I mean, you get into the percentages and all of that stuff, and I mean, it's like I said, I mean, there's a lot to it. I mean, there's a whole lot to it. So
That's crazy. That's awesome.
That's how we train.
So you just found out how to become one of the best in the world.
Yeah.
Now you just got to put the work in.
Now you got about 20
See you in 20 years.
You got about 20 years work. You'll be good. That's awesome. had the opportunity to sit and listen to Shane and Laura both multiple times when I was teaching some of the CrossFit gymnastic stuff down there. And, some of Shane's stories about, just what they would do to prep for meets and help, people coming in from Germany. He shared a story with a Russian that came in and was literally fearful for his life based on how well he performed at that meet. Like, it was not he was the story, I'm going to get it wrong for sure, because it's probably been 6 or 8 years since I listened to that story from Shane, but he was overweight, and he'd come into the country. He was overweight for whatever he needed to do. So he needed to lose weight, and he had a night to do it in. And they bled him out, reduced blood volume.
Yeah, it was surprising.
What?
To get him to make weight. And the serious tone that Shane took for this lifter from Russia wasn't I want to do well. It was he was a Russian sponsored by the Russian government, and this was like a life or death situation. Like, my family's either going to be well after this or not, and I need to make weight. And they made him make weight by literally.
What?
There's,
and that was
like any sport, there's a dark side to some of these things.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I've heard some horrifying weight cutting stories.
Yeah.
And I can remember one time, because the lightweight guys, and I always had it to my advantage, because I've always been a super heavyweight, except for one time. One time I dieted way down. Well, it was after I did the diet, and I competed as a 275er. So only time I've ever bench pressed double my body weight raw. Benched 550 and 275.
Crazy.
But I actually did a water cut. I cut from 296 to 273 in 48 hours. And that was the worst 48 hours of my life, was doing that water cut. But then, I just refueled with water and Pedialyte and stuff like that. But some of these guys, they'll go into their hotel rooms and they will crank the heat up, turn the bathroom on, the shower on in the bathroom, get all the steam in there, and just make it so humid in their room. And they'll just lay in there for hours in misery, and so that they can make weight. And then after they make weight, then they come back to the hotel room and they bag up. Yeah. And
that's what they did this guy.
Well, there was a guy one time. There was a guy that he had come in from Iowa that I was helping out, and he had done all that, and he'd done it all on his own. Well, there's a guy, an old medical doctor, and believe it or not, you can buy all the medical supplies right online. You can go on Amazon and buy everything you need to IV up.
Sure.
And so he had all these. He had to put like 6 bags of fluid back in him to get his weight back up.
6 bags.
Yeah. So the doctor never showed up. So he ended up having to hook himself up, and he had never done it on himself. And he ended up going into his hand, trying to hit one of the veins, and he kept missing. Well, finally, he got hooked up and everything was good to go. But the next day at the meet, I hand it out to him. And as I'm handing out to him, it's just just like 3 shots of blood right out of his hand. It was like a squirt gun. I was like, that is nasty. So just nasty.
That is so cool.
That's awesome.
That's crazy.
It's that side of it can get intense. I'm telling you.
Think of how crazy and intense that is. Be at the top of the world.
Yeah.
So.
Mike Wolfe.
Yeah.
That's
so,
absurd.
Yeah.
What's your craziest story?
Oh man. So I can tell you a funny one that was amazing. The 2007 Arnold Classic. 2 things there. Number one, I was a nervous wreck. And I could remember coming out onto that stage. And I don't eat before the meets because I used to get so nervous. Now the pancakes and PRs, which we were talking about before, now it's second nature, whatever. But I will eat Mike and Ike candies. And that's I carry a theater-sized box of Mike and Ike's and a Diet Mountain Dew. I take it into the warm-up room with me. I take it up onto the stage with me. If you see any pictures of me sitting in the staging area at the Arnold, I got Mike and Ike's in his hand and a Diet Mountain Dew. But anyways, we come walking up on the stage, and you get a view of those people. I mean, if anybody's been to the Arnold, you know how packed the expo is.
Yeah.
Well, when you actually see it from that side of the stage, and you see all them people packed in there, and everybody's turned and looking at
They're there to
you.
watch you.
Yeah. And I turn and I look at George, which was my trainer / coach / training partner. He hates it when we say trainer coach, so he's like, I'm a training partner. But he's the guy that took me to the top. And but I walk out there and I look at George, and I was like, that is a bunch of people. And he knew I was a nervous wreck. And he looks at me and he goes, Mike, he goes, where did you tell me you wanted to be when you came to West Side? And I says, on the stage at the Arnold. And he looks at me and he goes, where are you at? I said, on the stage at the Arnold. He goes, go show these people who you are. And I ended up pulling out second place. So, and it's funny because of my podcast with Canelli, he tells everybody else giving him a run for his money. And then he comes out and he smokes 905 like an empty bar. But I'll take second to Ryan. And that guy's a beast. So great guy too, super good guy. But in between the strongman and the powerlifting, and all of the strongmen were back there warming up for their last event, and we're in there also trying to warm up. So I mean, there's a lot of egos, a lot of testosterone floating around. And so myself and a guy named Scott Yard. If you ever see the picture of me and Canelli and the other guy on the platform, the ceremony platform, Scott's the other guy. And he's a big guy, but he's short stature. We're trying to get to the other side where the warm-up room for the powerlifting is. And Marcus Henry, I don't know if you guys remember Marcus Henry. He was a WWE wrestler. They claimed him as he actually won the world's strongest man there at the Arnold one time. Big man, just a monster of a man. And I'm standing behind Scott. Scott's trying to get around him. Scott's got his big gear bag and everything. And Scott says, excuse me, Mark, can I get through? And he didn't move. Excuse me, Mark, can I get through? Didn't move. Finally, Scott just says, screws it, and push through. And as he pushes through, his gym bag hits Mark. And I'm not going to say what Mark said because out of respect for the podcast, but Mark called him a few choice words. And Canelli was sitting in the chair right there, getting ready, warming up and everything. And Canelli flew up out of that chair and was nose to nose with Mark Henry. And I'm like 3 feet away. And Canelli says, say it again, I dare you. And those two, I mean, it was like two giant gorillas nose to nose. I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, hell yeah, this is going down. So, of all people, Bill Kazmaier comes over and gets between the two of them and splits them up.
Okay.
And those two, I mean, it was all over the internet. They were calling each other out. Ryan's like, I'll put a foot in your water. So, and it went on for a couple months, them two. And I had a front row stage to it. So that's one of my cool stories right there.
Would have came down.
Oh, yeah.
And because then it would have been every powerlifter and every strongman just throw it down.
Yeah.
But it was
like 7,000 pound weights, like nothing. Like frisbees at each other.
But it was funny because I pulled Scott to the side, and at the time, Mark was a pro wrestler. And I can say this because my son's a pro wrestler, but I told Scott, I said, you should have just got in his face and shoot him out. I says, he would have just acted like he was going to punch you and stomp the ground to make a sound. Scott's all like, yeah, it's not a risk I wanted to take. But yeah, it was that was a pretty intense moment. So really enjoyed that one. And then one of my other faves was just being out in Vegas, and we went out there for 2012 Worlds. Me and Randy, we had trained together for many years, and we never competed at the same meet. Either he lifted or I lifted because one of us was taking care of the other. And we decided to go up to Detroit, up to Romulus, Michigan. We decided to compete at the same meet, and it was a APF meet, and it was United States versus Canada. It was called the Can-Am Border Wars. Me and Randy went up there, and it was us against Canada. He ended up winning his age and division. I ended up taking second, and in the men's open division, I took the silver. And it qualified both of us for Team USA to go out to Las Vegas and compete on Team USA. So we first meet we ever competed at, we qualified for Team USA, and so me and him and D-Bone and Danny Rodriguez and Randy Francis, there's a whole bunch of us, and we all got on a plane and flew out to Vegas, and everybody did very, very well out there in Vegas, and I took the gold in the men's open, and beat Russia, so Russia was second and third, so that was an amazing feeling when you're standing on that podium and they're playing the American national anthem, and then Randy he took first, he took the gold in the Masters division, so it was a sweet trip out there. That's definitely one of my better. And then when 2015, when I finally set the world record, and I set the world record, and it actually held up until just a couple months ago, and Julius, who I was talking about earlier, he was the one that broke my world record. Wow. So yeah, it's like 7'10" now. He broke it by like 60 pounds, and but yeah, he's an animal. But yeah, he literally just broke my record, which, I mean, it's amazing. I loved it. Anybody that was going to do it, I'm glad he was the one that did it.
And it's great you talked to him, too, after the meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
so,
that is cool.
Yeah, so he's, like I said, I'm trying to get him here. I'm going to try and get him up for my birthday meet. Yeah. So I'll have him here. He just lives in Kentucky, so it's about a 3-hour drive, 3.5-hour drive from here. He's down by Louisville area.
We'll record holder in our small little CrossFit Yeah. So you've branched out and coaching now, and then you've started a new organization just recently, right?
Yes.
And we're hosting your first event.
Yep. We there's multiple weightlifting federations through powerlifting. I've always been predominantly APF, which is the American Powerlifting Federation. 57. When you get to the world level of that, it's called the WPC. The APF is just the American version of it, and then you got 57 countries that are affiliated with that have their own, like the South American Powerlifting Federation, right. The Asian Powerlifting Federation. I mean, with all of these, and so anyways, with that, that's what I've always competed at. The world level is the WPC, which is the World Powerlifting Congress, and then the next step up from that is the WPO, and that's the elite of the elite. That's the best geared lifters in the world. That's talking about the bench shirts and stuff. And I actually finally made it to the WPO. I've competed there about a half dozen times in WPO meets in the World Powerlifting Organization. That's the ones that did the Arnold and all that stuff at the time, and I've done a couple other ones in the Chicago area and stuff like that. But with that said, there are multiple federations. And a friend of mine, another legend in the sport, Bill Crawford, he has an organization based out of upstate New York called Metal Militia. And with the Metal Militia, it's very similar to the APF as far as attire, rules, and that kind of stuff. And so anyways, I had kind of been chatting with Bill and got involved with the Metal Militia, and was talking with some of the guys from the Akron chapter and stuff like that, which is based out of Eastern Ohio. And one of the guys that was training with us there for a while, he had suggested to Bill about letting me open a chapter here in Western Ohio. And so Bill approached me, asked me what my thoughts were, and I was like, yes, I would love to run a chapter here in Western Ohio. And so obviously they had to run it by the committee and all the other chapter presidents and make sure that everybody was okay with it. And on July 4th of this year, me and my wife, we was in Pigeon Forge. We went down there for the weekend for July 4th, and I got a phone call from the committee at our hotel. I was actually sitting poolside when my phone rang, and it was Bill and a bunch of the other chapter presidents, and they had all come together, and they voted, and everybody was unanimous in favor of me getting my own chapter. So we started a chapter here, and wanted to do something original, and And we went with the Los Lobos, the Wolves. So it is Metal Militia, the Los Lobos chapter. And we're based out of West Central Ohio. This is our home headquarters right here in Crave, and this new amazing office. So loving this, loving the feel here. But so I mean, I got a really good group. The folks that I coach on Wednesdays and Sundays, they're part of it. And then obviously I got Randy. He's my head judge, and I got a handful of my old training partners from West Side. They'll also help out with the judging and all of that stuff. And we're the Los Lobos. We are. Let me look real fast, see how far we are here on Facebook. I mean, I think the actual page itself is doing very, very well. So many followers we have at this point in time.
What a more perfect day to enjoy.
Yes, I know, right? We are actually for the Metal Militia Los Lobos Ohio chapter. As far as the members to the page, following the page, we're at 614.
Wow.
Actual members to the chapter, we're at about 15-20 actual chapter members. But followers of the page getting out there, and so the page is growing every day. And I with my Facebook band, I just started the Los Lobos page itself, so I got that. So
Awesome.
But so the meet's going to be exciting, and it'll be the first sanctioned meet that I've ever ran. I've ran plenty of meets. I get a lot of good feedback on my meets, and I run a very tight ship. I don't do the flash. I mean, I don't get all flashy and all that stuff. And we do have the new banner, which will be set up behind while we'll hang it off the Green Monster rig. And got a few good sponsors coming on. Got like I said, Corey Gregory with Monster Muscle. Got G Diesel Greg from G Code Nutrition. They come on board. Brett Smalls from Smalls Barbell. They're loaning us some equipment to use. Don and Lisa from Bulldog Barbells loaning us some equipment to use. So I mean, we got quite a few good things going on, and it'll be a fun meet, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're excited. Yeah, it's in that group. I mean, the crowd is obviously we live in the CrossFit world, but the crowd is exactly the same. It's just a different sport. They're extremely supportive. It's just like you're walking into a CrossFit competition when you walk into a bench press meet. You're like, holy smokes, these guys are jacking each other up and getting excited. And when the guy or girl, when they're down there for that heaviest lift, the whole place gets lit. And you're like, oh, that's cool.
Well, that happened to me last year because I did meet last year.
Yeah.
Mike was trying to help me out. I was like, I don't know how to bench. So when you said that, you're like, yeah, we did leg with a bench. And I was like, you're supposed to use your legs during a bench.
I blew my knee out bench pressing, so it's crazy. Literally had to have surgery afterwards. So
I did like, I don't know, some ridiculously stupid low amount of weight. But everyone was like, I got it, and I was like, oh, cool. And then I got up, sat up, and then everyone's like screaming. I'm like, wow, that's cool. Yeah. And then the next person that comes at his opening weight is like, I don't know, 120 pounds heavier than I just lifted.
There's going to be some big lifts. There'll probably be some close to 800 or higher bench presses at this meet.
Is the young man from Rockford? Jody, I know his mom.
Yeah, Ricky's goal for this meet is to take me out. So his goal is 650 plus.
Yeah.
So Ricky, I called him out on it. I was like, you can't let the old man keep beating you. It's like you got to get something in there. But we got him coming in, so he'll hit. That's in a t-shirt. I mean, that's amazing. So Big Craig's coming in. D-Boat's coming in, he'll hit 700 plus. Drex Welch is coming in, he'll hit close to 800, if not higher. We got Brandon Perdue, 600 plus raw lifter. He's like a 220 guy. He's amazing. So
when you say, this is, I guess just a question, but like when you say with a t-shirt, is that a benching shirt?
No, that's a t-shirt. That's
like
a
what
t-shirt.
You have on right now?
T-shirt, belt, and
Good
straps.
Lord.
Yeah.
I'll sit back down.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, and it's like I tell people. I mean, I don't want to scare people with those numbers. I mean, these guys are some of the best in the world. I mean, they're all top 25 lifters in their age and weight classes, and so it'll. What I tell people is, yeah, okay, as exciting as that is, when you compete, it don't matter how much you bench press. Your competition is you first.
That's right.
So you're always competing against yourself to get that personal best, and then you can worry about placing. And that was kind of always my philosophy. After I quit being a chump, when I was a chump, it was always first place, first place, first place. After that, I mean, if I didn't get first, I was first loser. And but I mean, then after I changed my mindset, that's where all my success come from. I mean, in this game, I've always said it's 90% mental, 10% physical. And I mean, when I first started going to West Side, I mean, I would be a nervous wreck. By the time I'd get to Marysville, I'd start having dry heaves. I'd have my cup of coffee that I'd get at the gas station. I'd always grab an extra cup, so if I got too bad where I was spitting up phlegm and stuff, I mean, I had something to spit in. So, but I mean, it's definitely mental. I mean,
I think that's a great lesson there too. That is like, you look at one of the best in the world, and when he's going to go work out, you still have those terrible feelings, you know. Like, you know, you can be the best and still not feel good.
That's right. There's a bunch of lessons there, and that's a good example. If you think about what from a coaching perspective, and we're all three of us are coaches in our own perspective worlds, right? That's the way we coach. We coach. Listen, it's you against you, and you want to get your PR. So let's go have fun and let's get after it. And we're going to support you, whether it's your PR or it's not your PR, whether you're first in class or last in class. It doesn't matter. We're going to be there to root you on, and that mentality is what makes people so successful, right? If you look at, for example, in your world, in our world, you look at Dee, where Dee Hoffman was at, going into her last competition here several months ago. It was constantly, let's just go have fun. We're here to see if you can better yourself tomorrow. Forget about everyone else, right? You and I both were, when she'd go out on the floor looking, it's blinders. Listen, you worry about the barbell, you worry about the movement in front of you, and you shut everything else off, right? And then if you feel like you're getting ahead, then you can take a peek around, like, where am I at? How do I feel? Do I need to press the gas pedal or not?
Right.
And
it's amazing. We have, like, you could see it click, like, so I would send her quotes every morning, and then talk to her throughout the day, and every time we're working out, I would just hammer her head, like, just all positive stuff, she's so negative on herself.
That's right.
And then just have to win, I have to do good for, like, she would always worry about Matt, like, Matt's taking so much time, like, whatever. And I was like, what? I'm dying next to you, you don't care about me? But just like, so you just change your perspective the whole time. And then there was one, I don't know, it was like after like the third minute or something. And she came back and was just like, she killed it. And I was just like, that's what champions do. And then she's like, champions have fun. And just like, and now you're just like, it just clicked. You're just like, she's gonna tear this up.
Yeah, it's gonna be nuts. And you can see it when you can see it click on the floor. And I'm sure, just like you, when you said you sat down on the bench, you snap that weight belt on. It's like a switch. You could see it. You couldn't see it until 3, 2, 1, go. That's the thing in CrossFit, right? To start the company, it's like 3, 2, 1, go. Because she was still kind of flying, like, forgot where to line up and all that. But once 3, 2, 1, go, you could see it. Her face would, like, click. And that's the same thing you talk about. When you strap that belt on, gives me goosebumps. Just watch it, like, that's so awesome.
So it's good stuff. Yeah. So, talking about PRs, that could bring us into our next meet. So the one coming up on February 6th, it's not a competition. It's actually we're running a bench meet for my birthday, and it's my birthday. I want to run a bench meet. I'm going to run a bench meet on my birthday. And basically, what it is, it's going to be a small entry fee. It's going to be a $25 entry fee. There's no trophies. It's called a no bullshit meet, is what it is. There's no trophies. There's no placings. All that it is, it's a PR meet. If you want a staged where you can go, you have 3 judges, a sanctioning body, rules and commands. That's what we're offering here. I'm not going to give out any awards. I'm not going to give out any prizes. It's just going to be come in, pay $25, which is going to be donated to a foundation or some kind of an organization locally that we decide on what we want to donate it to. And then we're just going to go bench. I mean, if you're a first-time lifter, you know what? Come in, give it a shot. It's $25. You feel what a powerlifting meet is like. If you're somebody that has been training your butt off and you're looking for a cheap meet to get into, this is the perfect meet. Come in, pay $25, get on there. If you're looking to hit a big PR, and you don't want to spend a ton of money to go to a big meet, and you want it to count for the overall top 100 totals. I mean, top all-time totals, actually, because I'll turn all of the numbers into the powerlifting organization. So it gives you a stage to be able to do that on. And then afterwards, we're going to have beer and birthday cake. So that's the game plan. So we're just going to have And my birthday gift from all of you is coming and bench pressing with me and doing a PR. So it's all just for fun.
Is this a common thing? Do people do this? Is this a normal thing?
We used to run no bullshit meets at Westside all the time. And you just come in, you paid a cheap entry fee, we put a sanctioning body on it. You didn't get no trophies. We just moved all the equipment out of the way, threw a bunch of chairs in there. Everybody had a chair to sit on. You warmed up on one side, you did your lifting on the other side.
Beautiful.
And,
That's your kind of meet right there.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. And like I said, I mean, not only does it give the lifters, it's an easy meet for the lifters to be involved in. First-time CrossFitters that ever want to test out their bench, Mackenzie Fishball, calling you out. So any of those people that want to hop in there, I mean, for $25, it's going to be donated. So I mean, it'll be
What a better way to do it.
it'll be a good thing to be involved in. So, but yeah,
Well,
good
this
stuff.
This has been great, man. This is what a great time. What a great podcast. Do you have any questions? No.
No, I don't think so.
What's
This was a really general one.
yeah.
I learned a shit ton about you.
Yeah.
This was phenomenal. This is a good introduction to a world champion.
That's right.
What was it? The astrophysicist? Would you say earlier?
Okay, I had this. I'm just gonna read it because I wrote this. I was writing. So this my mind is dumb. So I'm literally walking over here from the gym. It's like a, I don't know, 50-foot walk, 50-yard walk. And I was like, how to welcome Mike. Expert astrophysicist Mike Wolfe, a.k.a. tremendously strong and sexy Neil deGrasse Tyson. Now, two questions everyone is thinking. One, can there be life outside Goldilocks zones in space? And then do you know what a Goldilocks zone is?
So I watch Ancient Aliens all the time.
See? Speaking of bed. Oh my god. And I was like, yeah, obviously there can be though. Because Jupiter's moon Europa has liquid water due to tidal forces of the moon actually changing shape as it orbits. So the Goldilocks zone is a space in between two stars that is like green, so water can actually be liquid. So if it gets too close to the star, it evaporates, and you can't have life can't form off evaporated water. If it gets too far away, it freezes, and you can't use it either.
Yeah.
So it's a space in the middle. So if there's a planet there that has potential to have life.
Yeah.
So that I thought that was the only place. So I was like, no, that can't be. So I googled it real quick, and then it had the Neil deGrasse Tyson thing, and it said Jupiter's moon Europa has it because the way it orbits Earth, it changes the shape of the moon.
No kidding.
So it moves the ice, and it actually has water. So I was like, I wonder if astrophysicists what would know this.
If you talk to my wife, it drives her absolutely batty because Ancient Aliens and The Curse of Oak Island are two of my favorite shows.
Oh, me too.
to watch.
Curse of Oak Island.
Yeah.
It's on.
Yeah, it's
right
on.
now.
Yeah, the new episode started tonight. So, and I was actually watching it before we came up here. And my wife, we're sitting there one day, and I don't remember, we're just watching one or the other, and she goes, "Is that the same announcer that is from Vice Versa?" And like we watch it so much, and my wife realized it.
Yes.
And so then my wife, she'll be sitting there, and we'll be watching like Oak Island.
Yeah.
And she'll go, "Would you look at that?"
Spike.
Yes. She'll do that, or we'll be sitting there, we'll be eating supper, and I'll be watching Ancient Aliens. Just would be like, ancient alien theists. And they start going through, and she's like, do they believe? And I mean, she'll start narrating the whole thing. Well, today we got back. I got home from work, and did you guys see where that? What is it, a megalith?
Yeah.
Did you see where that turned up in Utah?
Yeah, Utah. Yeah.
And I'm all excited about it. And I'm like, dude, this is like some ancient alien stuff. And she looks at, she goes, they said it's artwork. How did it get there?
They don't know that.
No,
Nobody's come forward and said an artist put that out.
That is aliens.
That's right. Awesome.
Yeah, good stuff.
So then my second one, to how to get to know you, or like your story, I was going to say, a quote from, I think it's Theodore Roosevelt, but you must have gone through chaos to give birth to a star. That's how stars are born, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, obviously being an astrophysicist, you already know that, Mike. So they're not known for being stronger than a freaking ox. Could you tell us a bit about your background, life story, and let us know how you got to be or to such a high level?
That was
I
it.
was like, there has to be some chaos in the way.
It's actually funny that you bring up. There's actually a write-up about me calling me the Teddy Roosevelt of powerlifting.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
See, if I was a nervous Josh, I could have had that as a good segment.
There's actually. I'll Google it when we're done. I'll show it to you. So, but yeah, there's actually, if you Google Mike Wolfe, Teddy Roosevelt powerlifting, I'm sure that'll be in there somewhere. You'll come across it. But it just goes through and talks about my training and some of the stuff, cross-referencing it with Roosevelt. So it's a cool little read.
Awesome.
Dude, that would have been great to know.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. It's obviously you're winning. I would say you're winning in life and everything you've done. Right? That is so cool. There's
especially compared to Teddy Roosevelt.
That's right. When I bring that up, I talked to our probation kids yesterday. CrossFit box owner Sherman Merrick's in Florida. Actually, he owns a business that does like training, worldwide training, and that type of thing. So he's extremely successful outside of the CrossFit world, but he's highly successful inside of the CrossFit world. He posted this yesterday. He said, "If you don't smile when you see other people winning, heal that."
Yeah.
And I'm smiling ear to ear because you're winning, like, and we're winning, and we should support each other. So if you don't smile when you see other people winning, heal that. So fix that. You're winning, man. That's awesome.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And honestly, I've never seen Mike not smile.
No, I've never seen him either. Yeah.
There's that side. Only few people have seen it. So, me and my wife have been together. We started dating in summer '92, and she's only seen that side 3 times.
Yeah. There you go. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, come visit us, CrossFit Crave, December 5th. At
11 a.m. start. Lifting starts at 11. Be there at 10:30.
Cool.
So get a seat.
Awesome. See some awesome stuff. First, Los Lobos chapter.
Sanctioned powerlifting, man. So,
CrossFit Crave. We're excited.
yeah.
All right.
Hey, thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
Awesome.
Hey, Dave. O2 recovery.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave.
We're still not.
Our 2 podcasts a year, I don't see why we're not sponsored.
Yeah, I don't see why they're not sponsored. We got to fix that
Like really bad.
next week.
All
All
right. I
right.
got a quick comment. We're good.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
That's a wrap.